of revenues. Now in Europe, it's a very different story. The journey is only just beginning. Obviously, it's lagging behind the UK overall, but Germany is, I'd say, the next biggest market, with Scandinavia, France, Spain and Italy all gearing up very quickly. And obviously, as the big digital players move into markets, that is often what tends to then set them off. So that's digital publishing. We know what's happening. It's a fairly straightforward thing. It's digitization of your content and then getting it into the channels. We know how the channels are shaping up in the UK. The traditional channels, the bricks and mortar retailers, the high street retailers are suffering against the likes of Amazon and Apple. The independents are really nowhere and have a massive hill to climb. They might find salvation in Google eBooks, and that's yet to be seen in the UK. It's starting to be seen in the US already. The supermarkets are very interested too in ebooks, but they don't really know how to deal with that, and they're not fully in the game yet, but they all will be, I guess, by the end of this year. The massive majority of ebook sales are going to dedicated ebook reading devices, which is kind of against the concept that it's all going to be around the multifunctional devices. So at the moment, it's the tablet sales of ebooks are a very small proportion. About 7% of ebook sales go to tablets, and the rest really goes to dedicated devices. So when I say that, that's the tablet sales of ebooks are 7% of 1.5% of the market, if you see what I mean. So it's tiny, tiny, tiny. But mobile, which everyone always raves about, is completely invisible in terms of ebook sales. It's less than 1% of the UK ebook market, so it's 1% of 1.5% that's selling to mobile. So mobile's tiny. This is all going to change significantly, I'd say, by 2014. We have an expectation that tablet sales will account for more like 50% of the ebook market by then. So there will still be quite a strong dedicated device market, but tablets will really start to be showing their own by then. I'm sure that will be to do with the tablet prices coming down and becoming more widespread. But we don't really expect mobile to make a big dent in ebook sales, and we think it will stay a minority segment. It'll be key for lots of other reasons, marketing being the most important one. What else do we know about this market? Well, pricing hasn't settled yet. It's very inconsistent, and the varying rates of VAT have a lot to do with that. It's all part of it being a nascent market. Pricing often takes a while to settle down. I think it will settle down. And to let you know a little bit about categories and what's selling, fiction, mass market fiction is absolutely by far the biggest category. General non-fiction is very close behind that and picking up a lot now, particularly since the iPad launched and the tablets have come into the market, and you've got a lot more of the kind of demographic that buys some of the serious non-fictions coming up. And sort of study business-related non-fiction, our Alan Sugar biography did very, very well in e-form. Study and sort of business-style non-fiction comes closely after the general non-fiction, and then how-to and general reference after that. The children's category is really, really small, which you'd expect. I think the devices are not particularly child-friendly, particularly the black and white e-reading devices. The tablets are often child-friendly but are expensive. So I think that's all going to change again this year. Also, the formats haven't been ready to deal with integrated pictures and text, but they will become so very quickly. So that's a little bit about that. That's all just what we call straightforward vanilla ebooks, I call them. So they're just sort of the digital versions of what you have. The second area, which is in a way more interesting but less measurable, is the non-facsimile editions, or the digital products that go beyond the book. So this ranges from the ebooks plus extras, ebooks with a few multimedia elements built in, or some extra stuff that you don't find in the book, right through to the fully interactive story or narrative-led but digital experiences. I think when you go into a fully interactive game, then it's not a book anymore, it's actually a game. So we have to kind of just distinguish between these various areas. But we have a lot less supporting data for how this market is developing, partly because it's very difficult to measure it because there isn't really a single set of channels where it's happening, and it's less of a known quantity. But in 2010, experimentation in this area amongst publishers increased quite a good deal, particularly for publishers who have research and development budgets. But for the smaller publishers, maybe it was tougher to do that because they're very expensive to make sometimes. But we can say for sure that income from these enhanced editions, as you might call them, was a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of overall ebook sales, partly because there's very few of them being made. The tablet devices are ready for these kinds of products, but other devices aren't. Mobile is ready for it, but people are generally not actually reading or experiencing these things on mobile as much as we might have thought they would. The formats aren't developed, so the straightforward ebook formats can only really support quite clunky inclusion of little pieces of multimedia, for example. The development costs to put them across all the different proprietary platforms are very high and can be an inhibitor. And the consumer appetite isn't really clear. I think unless you have a big brand or you have something really that you're adding that's of value, it's difficult to measure that. So the commercial model is quite wobbly. The cost against the return on investment isn't clear, it's hard to predict. And that's related to the consumer appetite. How much is a consumer prepared to pay for something extra? As with any publishing decision, this isn't actually difficult, it's just publishing. You look at the market and what they will perceive to be of value, and that's how you make publishing decisions. But technology or enhancements for enhancement's sake is tending to lose people a lot of money. So yes, the consumer might pay €1 extra for an enhanced ebook of a really mass market, maybe a TV cult personality's biography which has some never before seen video included. But really, it's difficult to get people to pay more. It's actually more about getting placement. So if you're creating something enhanced, particularly for those channels where it's going to show off their device to the best quality, then that helps you to get placement. It might help you to get homepage or banners, all that sort of thing. In 2011, I think we're going to see a lot more experimentation. Particularly around the bigger brands and particularly suitable categories. And I'd say obviously there's various categories in non-fiction that are very suitable for this. And I think there's going to be a lot more action in the children's area this year and in educational publishing, where interactivity genuinely lends value in a way that it might not, for example, in a fiction brand. Just to quickly touch on what we mean then by digital marketing, I think it covers a multitude of areas, but I think it's really emerging as a very important component of publishers' strategies, and publishers are kind of behind on this. There's four C's that I would talk about here. Community, so reaching out to existing communities, online and offline, and in the best way where there's the interface between offline and online, I think. Developing new communities, involving aspects of community into the writing and reading process. The second category is content, which now doesn't just mean that you're publishing content, but it means every piece of content we create, from your marketing video through to the audio version of the text, to the text of the book itself, plus other associated multimedia assets that you might create. All of these now become part of your armoury in a digital marketing solution. Context as well, which is where mobile obviously really comes in. The time and place and experience being had at the time a reader or a potential reader connects with you, or the book, or the marketing piece, or the author. And the fourth category being connection, so between readers, that might happen completely, that you might facilitate, but you might not be part of, or that you might not facilitate at all, and which might be happening somewhere else. Between readers and authors, between publishers, readers and authors. And content becomes social currency in this series of connections. So how the interplay develops between our kind of core content assets, which are all those different pieces of content I talked about, and the aspects of online community, context and connection that can so easily be plugged in by us or by our readers, is going to be the most interesting thing that happens over the next few years.